Hello there, everybody. I'm Illegally Sam, and I am going to be showing you Levelhead once again, as I am known for, but it's going to be a little different today. I am going to be showing you the Community Campaign. So for anybody who's never seen Levelhead before, you got GR18 here, you got the package, and GR18 has to, grab the package and then, take it to the goal at the end of every single level. Let me see if that's good enough. But at the end, that is the gist of what is happening in Levelhead. But what is happening in the Community Campaign specifically? The Community Campaign is a collection of 52 levels made by 32 different creators. And I'm going to be playing through 37 of them. Because the Community Campaign is a campaign, not every level is required to get to the end of that campaign. And so I'm going to be just playing the ones that you have to play through in order to reach the end. So that is going to be 37 levels, all from a variety of creators from the game's community. And I'll obviously talk about it more as we go along, but just a brief introduction about the version that I am playing specifically. So there are two versions of the Community Campaign. There is the mod, where you can, if you play this game on PC, you can replace the game's campaign with the Community Campaign using a mod. And you can play through it just like the regular campaign, but with the Community Campaign levels. But if you're on console or you don't want to install a mod or something like that, you can instead play through the uploaded versions of every single level. There is a web app that you can use to track your progress through all the levels, and there are playlists that let you just, bookmark all the levels. You can play through them in a row, and that is what I'm doing today because I play this game on console. So I'm showing you the most accessible version, but if you are on PC, you can play the more fun version, which is the mod, because I just think it's really cool that exists. But regardless, we're going to be playing through these 37 levels as fast as I possibly can. And just let's see what happens along the way. So time will start when I enter the first level here. So I will give a countdown, and we can just go ahead and get going. So time will start in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Alright, so like I mentioned, the gist of Levelhead is we got to take this package, bring it to the end of the level, and, what happens along the way, happens along the way. But because this is the Community Campaign, this is going to be a lot more difficult than the base campaign is. So basically the gist behind, the difficulty level of the Community Campaign is it was kind of imagined as a sequel to the original campaign. So it's going to be, difficulty at the beginning is about similar to the difficulty at the end of the game's regular campaign. And it's only going to get harder from there. It is also split into 4 different zones, and at the end of every single zone is going to be a boss fight. So there's going to be a whole bunch of levels, then a boss fight, and then repeat that 3 more times until we get to the end. So all of these levels here, a lot of them are going to be introducing stuff that was not in the original campaign because it was added in a post-launch update. So the game's original campaign only can feature stuff that was, in the game at launch. And as a result, there's a lot of items that you only would be able to learn about through user levels. And that does include stuff like these canoodles here, where they shoot out projectiles and just walk around. They're a fun enemy. I do like them, and especially since you can grab their projectiles and throw them back at them to do damage, like this. So if you are familiar with the original campaign, or you've just seen me do a speedrun of this game before, you're going to be seeing a lot of new things that were not in that original campaign, and you might not have seen before. And I'm going to do my best to call that out and explain when that stuff pops up. It also does a good job of introducing and, tutorializing a lot of mechanics that the game has always had since launch, but either wasn't really required before or wasn't expanded upon too heavily, and that includes the idea of sprint speed. So this level here, the entire purpose of this level is to teach you how sprint speed works and how to maintain it as best as you can. So I'm going to be running through a whole bunch of obstacles, and every single one of these obstacles requires me to have sprint speed. That doesn't mean I'm going to be doing everything as intended necessarily, because I can break those blocks early and just save a few seconds by using that shell instead of using a cannon to break those. Just because this campaign was made by the community well after the game's launch, this campaign came out in about halfway through 2013, so it's about a year and a half old at this point. which was about 3 years after the game's original launch date and back in 2020. And so even though this campaign launched well after the game's initial launch, and the community had actual years to learn about this game, learn the ins and outs, learn a lot of nuances and everything, despite all that, there's still a lot of skips. There's still a lot of spots where we can just do things that aren't quite intended and save some time, because this is a speedrun. While this gets to show off a lot of the cool things that this game has to offer and a lot of cool things that the community can do with this game's level editor, at the end of the day, it's still a speedrun. So I'm going to be doing all that I can to get through things as fast as possible. So this level here is an interesting one. This is kind of like a puzzle where you have to position these punchers in the exact spots needed in order to bounce the batteries into the battery switches. And so basically, because I've played this before, I know where to position these so that when I hit the switch and launch the battery, they all just go directly where they're supposed to. Doing this level when you don't know where everything is supposed to go is not easy. This is actually a very tricky level when you're first playing through the community campaign. No. Okay. That was just like ever so slightly too far to the right. It's still slightly too far to the right. You just see the battery flying around because it's ever so slightly off with its positioning. Come on. Oh, there we go. That works. Definitely worked as intended that time. That one's slightly off position. So let's do this. Move it over slightly to the left. There we go. And one more. This one's the easy one. So as you can see, if some of these punchers are just the slightest bit off of where I want them to be, the battery will just fly around. It will not end up where you want it to. But this level here is a good zipper level. So because this is a sequel to the original campaign, the idea is you kind of already know what all the power-ups do. So I will still have to explain them in case you've never seen this game before. So this is the zipper. When you hit the power-up button, it zips forward a few tiles, which lets you go through walls. And while that is very, very easy to cheese levels with, there's actually not too much zipper cheese in the community campaign because that was actually zipper-proofed pretty well. Which is good from the sense of, you have to play the levels as intended, but, it's a shame that we can't break them apart for speedruns. That being said, these levels are still fun, and using the zipper as efficiently as possible is still very difficult and very fun to optimize. Which is what I was trying to do throughout that level, because there's a cooldown on every use of the zipper, so you have to try and hit it at precise times. Alright, so remember how I mentioned how we don't exactly have to do every level as intended? Yeah, this is one of those. Because this level, there's like a damage wall that's kind of gating you from the end of the level. We can just damage boost through it. And now you get to see me do it again, because I accidentally missed the package grab. Because this skip's just so cool, I wanted to show it off to you again. Yeah, so normally this level's like 40 seconds long. It's actually a pretty cool level, because it uses like some custom hazards with those lasers to like give the illusion of actual damaging lasers. And like I said, this is such a cool level, I just want to show it off to you until you really like appreciate how good this skip is. Because I'm messing up the easy part. That's fine. There we go. But yeah, this cool level actually has a lot of cool visual effects where it's like these lasers are custom hazards where very few things that you're going to be seeing throughout the community campaign are built into the game. There are a ton of custom hazards, custom obstacles, custom enemies, all kinds of stuff that is only possible through the game's level editor and not built in. And that's part of what makes the community campaign so cool, is because it just shows off all of the kinds of stuff that you can see in the user levels in this game. And the community campaign is kind of just a good microcosm of that. Alright, so this level here is a level featuring the Rebound. So the Rebound was also in the game's original campaign, but it was the last power-up introduced, so you actually didn't see it that much. But basically, it's the obligatory shoot projectiles power-up, but with a twist, because when you shoot the projectiles, it launches you in the opposite direction. And there is a lot of nuance to using this power-up, because you only get 2 shots at a time, and so you have to time things so that your shots recharge when is most convenient. In addition to, not falling off the side of the map occasionally. But these projectiles do also damage enemies, and there's 5 enemies there. You only have to kill 3 of them, thankfully. So I can just kill 3 of them real quick and then move on. But yeah, this power-up is very, very, takes a lot of getting used to with the trajectories and the angles and stuff of using it, in addition to maintaining momentum as much as possible, because shooting a shot is faster than walking, but it's also a lot harder to control. But in true, user-level fashion, there's going to be a lot of, not a lot, but there's going to be a few Kaizo and Kaizo-y levels, and this is the first Kaizo-y level. It's not truly a Kaizo, I would say, because, it's not like you have to keep moving the entire time. There's more than a few spots where you can, catch your breath, not move too much, but it's a huge string of obstacles all over the place, and you just have to chain things together a whole bunch using some power-ups, some throws, some just classic platforming along the way. But this level also does introduce one of the items that was added post-launch, the Recycler. So what the Recycler does is if you grab it, it instantly recharges whatever your power-up's special ability is. So for the Waylay here, I can just punch again immediately after grabbing a Recycler, and for the Tiptoe, it lets me use the bush immediately again after using it the first time. And that's the case for literally every single power-up in the game. Whatever its special ability is, it lets you use it right away. Alright, so this one's a fun one, because this has just basically a whole bunch of different battery switches that you have to deposit batteries into, but there's also a lot of obstacles along the way that you have to actually traverse and navigate through in order to spawn those batteries, including this spot here where we have to use these cannon shots as moving platforms, which is a lot harder than it looks. And while it's not like the hardest obstacle in the game or anything, moving one-tile obstacles are definitely not easy to jump on. But now that we are able to grab this last battery here, we can move on to the last area, which is supposed to be like a huge gauntlet where you're supposed to bounce off a whole bunch of bullets in order to make it up to a few switches, but we can just do this instead. So yeah, by hitting the bumper and jumping at a perfect timing after hitting it, we can just get a ton of height and a ton of horizontal distance and just go straight to those switches without having to actually deposit that last battery, which is faster. Alright, so because I am playing this through the playlist system and the bookmark system in-game, I have to play through the levels in groups of 10, and so at the end of every 10 levels, you're going to see that results screen pop up, which is basically giving you a quick rundown of how you did on each of those 10 levels. And, you're not actually going to be seeing too much of it, because I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible, because, looking at your results is slow, and so we don't want to do that. Alright, so this level is just a huge battle arena, so you just have to get through it, kill all the enemies as fast as possible without dying, and once they're all finished off, the game gives you the package, and you can just go drop down to the goal. That level is significantly harder than I made it look. That is the first huge difficulty spike of the campaign, I would say, because you have to get through that entire level without a single checkpoint. So if you die a single time, you have to redo the entire thing. And even when doing it quickly, the level's about 30 seconds long, and doing it casually, it's a lot closer to a minute. And so having to do a minute-long brawler over and over again because you die to the last enemy is a little frustrating. But this here is the first boss fight. So as you can see, we got this, I don't really know what to call it in the middle, but it's the Peanut of Doom. And it's got these little appendages on the side that we have to climb up, grab batteries, and deposit them in order to defeat the boss. This is definitely not my favorite boss. It's probably my least favorite boss of the 4 in the campaign, but it's still a fun boss. It's just a lot of auto-scrolling type gameplay because there's not really too much you can do to speed things up. You just gotta make sure you don't mess up, grab the batteries, and keep going. But after we deposit 6 batteries, the Peanut of Doom at the top there will be revealed. And we can, take him out, defeat him, and keep moving on through the campaign. Because as you can see, now he's revealed. I could bounce off of one of these cannon shots in order to get up here slightly faster, but that is risky, and I am not about to accidentally lose a minute because I decided to save 2 seconds at the end of this auto-scroller. I have done that for the best time on the level, but I am not doing it in a full run setting because that is needlessly risky. Alright, so this level here introduces the first power-up and only power-up that was added post-launch, and therefore was not in the game's original campaign, the Shade. So what the shade is you press the power-up button, it drops a rune on the ground that you can then pick up, throw around, and if you press the power-up button again, it teleports you to it. It is a very fun power-up. It has a ton of potential that you can do both as a player and as a level builder. And like I said, it is just genuinely a lot of fun to use because there is a lot you can do with it. So like as you can see, we can, from that level, which was just kind of introducing the idea of teleporting around, this one, you know, you can combine that with these cannons here. And when you teleport to the Shade Rune, you maintain your momentum from these cannon shots. And so this level is going to be using that in a lot of places and in a lot of different ways. So you gotta basically grab your rune in midair after getting shot out from these cannons, throw it, and then use the momentum from the cannons to make it to the next section. And we're just gonna be doing that a whole lot. Now, we can also skip that cannon because you can just jump up using the rune. Because if you jump and then teleport to the rune, you maintain your momentum from your jump. So you can basically throw the rune in midair and then jump right before teleporting, and you can just get a super high jump. Oh, dang it. So this one's fun because basically you use the height that you get from throwing the rune combined with the blaster movement to just cruise through that little corridor of spikes. All right, there we go. That level's tricky to do quickly, but it is a fun and satisfying one when you can do it quickly. Oh, hey, and now I get to call out how going too fast loses you time. Because in this specific version, because I am playing on the public, like, user-uploaded versions of these levels in Levelhead, it also has the regular public leaderboards. And if you get a top time or a top score, it plays a little animation and shows you getting that top time or top score on the leaderboard. However, it plays a little animation when you do that, and so if you go too fast, you get an extra animation, which slows you down. So obviously, if you go fast enough, you save enough time where it doesn't matter that you get an extra, like, half second to a second animation. But if you were to improve your time by, like, 0.05 seconds, you will lose more time by watching the animation than you did by getting a new best time. And that's just, like, a funny little quirk of running on this specific version of the community campaign. Also, something else to note that is just a feature of the base game that is very important for campaign speedruns and community campaign speedruns is the dunking mechanic. So when you finish a level, you know, you've got these dots above the goal, and depending on how high above the goal you are, you get a better dunk bonus. So each dot above the goal is worth 300 points, and so the maximum dunk bonus you can get is 3,900 points. However, the better dunk bonus you get, the longer the dunk animation is. And so if you don't want a long dunk animation, you have to get a minimum dunk. And that is worth 0 points, but it saves about a full second of animation at the end of every level. So whenever possible, I'm going to be trying to get as low down on the goal as possible. And basically, you know, over the course of 37 levels, if I were to do a perfect minimum dunk versus a perfect maximum dunk, that would be 37 seconds saved across the run. So it's very small on each individual level, but it adds up over the course of a long run. Also, we've got these enemies here. These are gibbers and jabbers. The gibbers are the big ones, I believe. No, the gibbers are I always forget which one's which. One of them is the small one, one of them is the big one. I always forget which one's which. Jabber is the small one, gibber is the big one. I think that's what it is. But yeah, they just chase after you. The big ones, the jabbers, or the gibbers, I mean. I'm going to be getting them mixed up the entire time. Yeah, but you can jump on the jabbers, which are the small ones, but you cannot jump on the big ones because they can only be damaged through projectiles. So either using the rebound or by throwing damaging projectiles at them. And that will come into play in later levels where I do have to kill some of them. But this level is just like a quick little sprint chase level where I had to use the mad jabbers as platforms because the mad jabbers are slightly faster, slightly in air quotes because they're actually a lot faster than the regular jabbers are. But that makes it a little more interesting when you have to contend with them because they will chase you down. Well, the regular ones definitely still chase you down, but they're a lot more chill about it because you can very easily outrun them. You can't outrun running into a spike in the floor by just missing a jump, though. That, unfortunately, is not something that you can just avoid by running faster. That requires actual platforming. And this level is one where you can just kind of ignore the jabbers the entire time and just run through the entire level with them following you. But because this level goes back and forth, like left and right so much, it's not worth it. Because while it is technically a couple seconds faster to not stop and kill them, it is so much more annoying to have to contend with them for the entire level that when I was like initially grinding the IL for this level, trying to get it done, I was losing my mind because I would die to them almost every single time in the exact same spot, but just not in the exact same way because they were in slightly different positions every single time. So I couldn't even like adjust and avoid them the next time because they'd be in a slightly different spot, and I eventually just gave up. And I have still not gotten a full run through of that level while keeping them all alive without dying. Alright, so this level here, this is made by FlowArt. I didn't call it out, but in the top left of the screen is the name of the level and also the creator of each level. I'm calling out FlowArt specifically because he is one of the top creators in the entire game and also arguably one of the best creators as far as like level quality goes. And as you can see, this is like a light Kaizo where, you know, it's a lot of Kaizo movement, but it is very satisfying and not actually that difficult. It's like, it looks a lot harder than it actually is because FlowArt is the master of making Kaizo levels that are not actually that hard and just make you feel really cool about getting through them quickly. But this here is an auto-scroller, but I think this level, you know, for being an auto-scroller gets a pass because it's just a cool setting because you're like on a highway. You got all these cars that you're, you know, you're platforming through. You got the road down below that's like bobbing in and out. And as you can see, it's like you run on the road and it's pushing you back because we're on the highway. I just think it's a really cool level. It's a shame when I die because it loses a lot of time on this level because it is an auto-scroller. But like I said, I just think this level's cool. And there is actually a little bit of stuff that you can do on this level regarding going faster. Because, well, one of those things is not dying. That's actually the most important one. I seem to be forgetting that for some reason. No, but about halfway through the level, there is a checkpoint, and if you get to the checkpoint before the screen scrolls all the way over to the checkpoint, the screen will immediately jump to where that checkpoint is, and as a result, it cuts out a little bit of scrolling. So the point is right here. So as you can see, it jumped ahead a little bit, and so by doing that, you can actually save a little bit of time on this level by cutting out a little bit of auto-scrolling. And then the other way you can save time on this level is by just going to the goal as early as possible in the auto-scroll. So if you know where the goal is, you can just kind of go to it off screen at the end of the level. But if you don't know where it is, obviously you're going to be, you know, waiting until it's on screen and then jumping to it. But like I said, I know where it is, so I'm going to be able to jump to it a little bit earlier than I would be able to otherwise. All right, let's be a little careful here so I don't accidentally run to any of these saw blades or fire or anything. And yeah, the goal's right up here. As you can see, it's like barely off screen, so if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't be able to finish the level early, but you can finish a little early. All right, and there is actually a minor bug with the bookmark menu where if I hadn't refreshed the bookmarks and gone back to the first page, it would have automatically gone back to the first page and would not have been able to progress past that first page. I don't know why that happens. It's just like a little weird quirk that you have to deal with when you're playing a lot of bookmarked levels in this game, which is a little unfortunate, but like I said, as long as you know it's there and you know how to get around it, it's not that big a deal. So yeah, this level is just don't hit the whiz blades and don't hit any of the spikes. It's just a pretty simple, quote-unquote simple, in the sense that like there's not like a whole lot going on in this level as far as like complicated like structures go or anything like that. It is just quite simply platforming and somewhat difficult platforming. So it's like you gotta cancel your jump height on these springs here, where if you press A after bouncing on it, you will go different heights depending on, you know, if you hold it, or if you let go early, you will actually go less high off of it, which is very important for a couple of these jumps because it is very easy to accidentally go into the spikes if you're not careful. Also, that whiz blade over the goal has killed me before, and so I am now very, very intentional with when I try to actually finish the level, because it is very annoying to get to the end of that level and just jump straight into the goal and die anyway. Alright, so this level here is a fun one because this one uses these flap sacks, that's what these are. I always mix up flap sacks and blop sacks because they're both sacks. But yeah, these are flap sacks. Basically, you can throw them on the ground. They bounce pretty high, and then you can bounce off of them after throwing them. And that allows for some pretty fun platforming sections here. There we go. There we go. All right, and then a little bit of a package jump to get up to the top there. All right, and now we get to do the next boss battle. This is the second one. It's going to be centered around the Shade and uses a bunch of the enemies that we've seen so far. But the reason why, this is a boss fight is because of the ending section here, because we're still in the lead up to the boss fight. It's no good if at the boss fight you just go straight into it. You gotta play a little bit of level beforehand. But I am going to make sure I take out all of the jabbers beforehand because this boss fight is kind of annoying. Because it's you basically have to kill a whole bunch of enemies without dying along the way. And that is easier said than done. Because there's basically 3 waves of enemies, then you gotta, after each wave you have to damage the boss. And you only have so much armor, and if you do die at any point, there is not another checkpoint in this level after that one I just grabbed a little bit ago. So if I die at any point, I have to redo the entire boss fight, which is very, very frustrating. But I think it's a really cool custom boss fight, because you gotta throw the bombs at there. There's explosive peanuts in there, which are another one of the enemies that were added post-launch, where they're basically just, they follow a pretty simple path, but they explode after you hit them. All right, I'm being very, very careful here. All right, there we go. Because like I said, if I'm going to be probably a little more careful in this than I normally would be on some of these other levels, because if I die at any point in this entire boss fight section, I have to redo the entire boss fight, which would not be ideal because it is very long. Okay. I took more damage there than I would have liked, but that's okay. Doesn't matter how much damage I take as long as I don't take enough damage to get killed. Yeah, and these portals here are just shooting projectiles at me the entire time while I have to kill this gibber, which is what makes this as difficult as it is. All right, and I didn't soft lock. There's actually a not easy to hit soft lock, but a soft lock that I have hit more than once when you go to this phase, where you just get stuck underneath that little platform there when you get shot into the room. And if that happens, you just have to restart the entire fight. Thankfully, that didn't happen. It's only happened to me twice, but it has happened to me more than once, which is why I wanted to mention it. All right, but I mentioned how this is kind of like the sequel to the original campaign, and that means there's a lot of very difficult techniques that are going to be in this campaign from this point forward, starting with this level. This is called the super jump experience because this is the level that teaches you about super jumps. Super jumps are something that were in the game since, even when the game was in early access, but it was never intentional. Basically, the devs made the game's mechanics, and the mechanics worked out in such a way that when you throw the package into the air, you are able to jump off of it in midair, basically giving you a double jump. And then, the devs didn't do it intentionally, but when it was discovered that this is a thing that you can do, the devs were just like, oh, hey, that's really cool. We're just going to leave that in the game. And so the original campaign does not use this at all as an intended mechanic, but the community campaign sure does. So from this point forward, almost every level is going to be using super jumps just as a part of the normal platforming of the level. Now, that's not to say that I'll be using them 100% as intended every single time, but they are intended from this point onward for the most part. So this level here is just kind of like a mountain climb level. When I first played this level, I don't know if this level was inspired by Celeste at all, but when I first played it, I just felt like a Celeste level because, you're climbing a snowy mountain. That's what you do in Celeste. But that's not to say there's really all that much directly from Celeste. It's just that was the kind of vibes that I got when I first played this level. But like I said, from here on out, I'm going to be using super jumps because it is actually required by a lot of the levels in a lot of places. But I like this level a lot because there's actually a lot of cool platforming sections in this one. And there's a lot of cool some platform momentum here where I gotta jump on the moving platform and use that to reach the next section. There's a little secret area that is a secret, but you actually have to go down here in order to progress, which is fun. Okay. Because I had momentum from the platform, so I didn't actually think I nailed the super jump, and then I did, so I just kind of wasted that. All right, but I do need to kill that enemy in order to progress, so which is why I had to grab the projectile from the giant Swoopadoop. Yeah, this level is basically just a culmination of a lot of the stuff that I've done in a lot of the earlier levels so far, and just like using it all in a fun little platforming level. So it doesn't have like a ton of unique mechanics, but it's just a very well put together level as far as platforming goes. But I can skip that last section there by using a bomb on the left side instead of going around the right side as intended, and that just skips like that last little section of the level. Alright, but this level is going to be using a lot of package jumps. So basically, if I put the package down on spikes and jump on it, that is a package jump. But, you know, package jumps are boring, so it's also going to have a ton of super jumps and a bunch of interesting variations on the super jump, because we got crumbler hops, where you throw it down on a crumbler, the package bounces up, and then you're able to jump off of it. And we're also able to use the package to hit some of these switches, and then, you know, re-grab it and then jump back down. But also, it's going to have a lot of super jumps in, like, moving platforms and stuff like that. We're going to be using the package to jump onto moving conveyor belts, jump off of moving conveyor belts with a super jump. Then these crumblers are going to turn on, so we have to actually contend with a moving crumbler a little bit. But now we have this last section here. So this last section has this little, like, sea of spikes that we have to deal with, because it's going to go down and then back up. And then back down again. So like, it is very important to, like, be very careful when going through this last section, because it's very easy to accidentally mistime things, and then the spikes are just, there's nowhere to land because the spikes are in the way. All right, this is a fun one, because this is you know, you got your classic, you know, this power-up can fly, so you're going to have to fly through all of these tight spike corridors. But it's not exactly just that. Because we've also got a bunch of zippers all around, because basically we get to the end of a corridor, we grab the zipper, and then we zip into the next corridor with little bits of zipper sections in between when we get to a checkpoint. So yeah, we basically had to zip through that giant Lazumi, get to the other side, jump up some platforms, and then do a bit more ripcord platforming. And yeah, now we have these Lazumis just kind of stuck on those platforms that are very much too small for them, so they're just kind of spinning around in place. Looks kind of goofy. Alright, now I gotta be a little careful with this last corridor. There we go. Alright, that level is a lot harder than I made it look, because I actually got through things pretty cleanly that time. Not too many deaths. There have been times where I spent a lot longer on that level, so I'm glad that one went well. But here's another shade puzzle level. There's going to be a bunch of shade challenges where you have to use the shade to figure out how to get through each one. And one of those is using the shade to get sprint in a location that you wouldn't normally be able to. So the way sprint works in this game is if you run in the same direction for about 7 tiles uninterrupted, the game gives you sprint. So there's no run button or anything like that. And so basically you have to, you know, have an uninterrupted stretch of land in order to get sprint. However, what counts as an uninterrupted stretch of land also counts when you're using the shade to teleport back to the beginning of it. So if you have like 4 tiles of uninterrupted ground, you can put a shade rune down at the beginning of it, teleport to it, have the shade rune down at the beginning of it. You can then walk to the end of the corridor without stopping, and then teleport back to the beginning before hitting the wall. And because you never left the ground and you never stopped running, you can just get sprint in much shorter passages than you would be able to otherwise. And this level uses that a couple of times, which is fun. However, you can also use the shade rune to platform, because when you throw an object down, it kicks you up a little bit, and you can use the shade rune to just kind of use that and just, you know, not have to worry about spikes if you have shade. Like I said, we use the shade rune to get sprint here. And we also get to use it again to with the blaster in order to break those blocks. Alright. And then put the shade rune there specifically so I can just jump right out, deposit battery, and we're good. That's actually a really satisfying level to optimize because it's just so many small challenges. So it's like there's no like huge big skip or anything. It's just a lot of small optimizations, and they add up over the course of a minute-long level. All right, so this here, I think this one might be my favorite level in the entire community campaign because I just think the gimmick that it has is really fun. So what is happening here is the tiptoe can cling to walls and it can cling to ceilings. That is how it works. However, you might notice that I'm using the grapple hook, or the tow cable as it's called, to grab onto walls in order to cling to them. That is not normally a mechanic that this game has. The only reason that works is because there is an item inside of every single one of these walls that I am grabbing. So under normal circumstances, that item, when I grab it, it's called a flingo. That item, you know, you grab it and it launches you in the opposite direction from where you grabbed it. In this level, they're pathed into the walls, and so when I grab them, they just instantly put me onto a wall or a ceiling, and since I have the tiptoe, I just start grabbing it and instantly am able to use that for platforming. And that's why this level is so much fun to me, because it has a really unique gimmick, because I don't think I've ever seen this used in a level before this level came out. And it's also really fun to just like get a huge amount of height by grabbing one of them while on a wall and then jumping immediately after, and it just launches you into the air. Alright, so this is Ride Star Ridge. This one is a little infamous to me internally because of recent memory, because about a week ago I grinded this level on stream for about an hour straight trying to get the best time before I finally got a clean run. And by that I mean I actually beat the level one time and got the exact run I was looking for, and then just didn't hit the goal and died by accident, so I had to redo the entire level until I got the time I wanted again. So I basically had to get the best time on this level more than once because I just messed up literally at the last possible moment. And you can tell why it took me an hour, because this level is very difficult to do well, because it has a lot of shell movement. So basically, Scrubs and Oculas. Scrubs are the green ones, Oculas are the orange ones. Basically, these are kind of like shells from, you know, Koopas and Mario, where you can pick them up, you can throw them, you can jump off of them, you can even do shell jumps with them off of walls like this. Shell jumps in this game are actually not that difficult in most scenarios, because if you just hug a wall and then jump up, you can do a shell jump every single time if you throw it correctly, and the timing is very lenient. However, what makes it difficult is when you're not just jumping up against a wall and hugging it. And you can also do something called shell surfing, which is where I throw it down at an angle and then just bounce off of it like this. And shell surfing is very, very consistent, because the way the speeds work out is you'll just land on it every single time. However, combining it with the waylay here for punching all over the place and having to grab them in midair and use them to break these blocks, and, you know, all of this stuff in tandem like this is what makes this level so tricky. But it's also a really fun level because there's so much going on. You just got to chain everything together, and it's really satisfying once you know what you're doing and you're able to do it consistently. Or if you're able to do it mostly consistently and still mess up a couple times. Alright, this is the ending that I messed up that one time on stream, where it's like I did this, I grabbed the package, but I wasn't in the goal, and then I accidentally hit B and just dashed off the right side there and died. I was very annoyed when that happened. But as you can see, I did have the shoe on that level, so I did manage to get the run that I wanted at some point in time. It just, you know, took way longer than it should have. But this here is the last level of Area 3. This is the boss. And this is a fun boss, but a very frustrating boss for a speedrun, because this entire level is one long continuous stretch with no checkpoints. So if you mess up at any point during this boss fight, you have to redo the entire thing. But the reason why this boss fight is interesting is basically you chase down the boss, like I'm doing here, and you are able to throw these Lazumi thorns into that little portal down under the boss. Like, you might see that it's where it's shooting the fire out of. And I can damage it this entire time during the chase. But what makes it interesting is at the end of this chase, you know, the boss will stop moving, and it's like a little battle arena where I just have to, you know, get all the hits off and defeat the boss as quickly as possible. But in order to beat this boss and actually get the best possible time on it, you have to do as much damage as possible during the chase sequence, which is simultaneously really cool and really fun, and also really, really difficult. All right, this is the part I mentioned where it just kind of stops and you just got to keep doing damage to it. Thankfully, once you know what you're doing, it's actually really easy to do consistent damage to it, because you basically just punch up, and then throw the projectile at the peak of the jump, and 12 hits later, the boss is dead. Thankfully, that didn't actually take me too many tries, because I have made it to the end of that fight, been at like 10 or 11 hits while he's just like moving around at the top, and, you know, just absolutely whiff one of my jumps, jump straight into fire, and I have to redo the entire fight. And it's like a minute long, so dying at that point is very, very frustrating. All right, this level is kind of a play off of a duology of levels from the original campaign, which are the cart levels, which are Ouch Cart and Nope Cart. And this is Ouch, that cart hurt. Because it basically takes the idea of that, which is you've got these moving platforms and a bunch of obstacles along the way, but you have to do a whole bunch of shell platforming along the way as well. So you gotta throw shells into specific positions, you gotta do some shell jumps, you gotta throw them and bounce off of them, all that good stuff. And this is what I meant by shell jumps are consistent, as long as you're using them in a very managed circumstance. And this is a circumstance where it is very, very easy to mess up these shell jumps. But they are very, very satisfying to get in this context, because you just get a ton of height when you're able to jump off one of these platforms with sprint, like this. And then I just keep missing that last grab, which is not that big a deal, because this last checkpoint's actually pretty quick. There we go. And then I can do that. And that package positioning is actually very evil, because if you were to just grab up from the ground, you wouldn't get enough height. And so you have to specifically jump underneath the package in order to get enough height in order to grab the package. All right, so this is a fun level, because this is one of the most broken levels as far as the speedrunning route goes, because I am able to just kind of cheese about half of the level. But first I have to get past the intro section here, so hopefully I can grab the tiptoe through these spikes and not keep hitting the trigger like marginally too early and hitting the wall. There we go. So grab the tiptoe and it gives it to you in midair like that, and then grab the shell, and then I can cheese this section. So I'm supposed to like do a bit of platforming to hit this switch, but instead I can use this shell to just like barely break that block and get it in there in order to hit the switch. And that allows me to skip the platforming in this section, which is slightly faster than doing it as intended. And then this section here is like a waylay section where it's a high-speed waylay section. So you're going to get sprint, dash on the ground, which gives you tons of speed, and you have to do some platforming like that. The level kind of intends for you to use something called slurb juice, which slows everything down. It puts everything in slow motion so that you're like able to actually tell what is going on and actually make these jumps pretty comfortably. But something that makes me go slower is slow when I'm in a speedrun, so we're just not going to use it. And that makes that section look really cool. Like, I'm very glad that I'm actually able to do that section relatively consistently without the slurb juice, because it looks way cooler without the slurb juice than it ever does with it. All right, and then there we go. All right, now that we're at this last section here, I say last section because this is the last section we do as intended. So basically, I'm going to get sprint here, go to this little secret area on the right, grab this hidden sproing, and using this sproing, we can break the rest of the level, because we can just kind of go back up here, make our way up here, and then using the sproing, we can just kind of bounce over these spikes, make it to the last section, and then use it again to just bounce over the last section. And then just go straight to the end. All right, this last jump's a little tight, so I messed it the first time. Okay. And then put the shade rune down, and then grab the package. That package grab is actually really tight, and so I'm glad I got that first try, but that is a lot harder than it looks. All right, next up is Rebound Palace. This is basically like kind of a Rebound Kaizo type level where I'm just going to be using the Rebound and the package a whole lot to just make it through these sections that are about as hard as they look, because these sections don't look easy, and they are not. But thankfully, it is lined up in such a way that, like, it is not... Once you know what you're doing, this level is actually not too bad. Like, there's no individual section that's really difficult, except for maybe, like, making it so that throw lines up so you can re-grab it properly. But other than that, like, this level's really not that bad. It's just, it takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you can get through this level without that many deaths. Because, like I said, it is difficult. It's just a level that you can learn and get good at, which is very nice. Right, and then this last section here is you just gotta navigate through these spikes using the rebound, and there we go. And already, there's only 3 levels left. However, they are the 3 longest and hardest levels in the entire run. Well, this one isn't the longest, but it is very difficult, because this is the only level that uses what I would call, like, super difficult elite tech. because this level uses the bumper super jump. So basically, I throw the package forward and bounce off of that bumper and land on it in midair while both of us are careening forward at high speeds. It is not easy, and we have to use it a lot throughout this entire level. So something that is interesting that with the campaign is there is a single split path in the entire community campaign. If you like look at the community campaign's map, either like using the web app that was developed or the mod. And the only split in the entire campaign is specifically at the end here with this level, where you can either do this level or you can do two different levels that are a lot easier but are longer. And so for the sake of the speedrun, you just gotta chin up and deal with the fact that you do have to do the harder level because it's faster. But if you are playing casually, if this level is too much for you, you don't have to beat it in order to reach the end of the campaign, which is very nice. Because this level is not for the faint-hearted. It is very difficult. Because these timings are very, very precise. And I'm glad I got that one section a little bit ago first try, because that is the hardest part of the level. And like I said, I am very glad I got it first try. Because it is very easy to get stuck there for a while. In addition to bumper super jumps, the ending here uses damage boost super jumps, where I use the knockback from when I have armor and take damage, and use that to do super jumps in midair as well. Alright, and this is Illusion Machine. This is by Mayoi. Mayoi is the person who basically coordinated the entire creation of the community campaign, where he was not the one who made every level, obviously. That was a collective effort by dozens of people, but he is the one who basically was the head organizer for the entire campaign. And in true head organizer fashion, he is making the second to last level, which kind of remixes all of the other levels you saw throughout the campaign. So if you've been watching this entire run, see if you can recognize where each of these sections come from, because every single section of this level comes from a level that was already in the community campaign earlier. And so you would have seen where every single one of these sections comes from. However, because this level is kind of like a last hurrah, here's like a medley of all of the ideas from throughout the community campaign, it's also really long and really difficult. As you can see, the best time I've ever gotten on this level is over 2 minutes long. And that's with almost no deaths, doing everything almost perfectly. So needless to say, this level is very difficult to do quickly and very difficult to do in any amount of time that's like less than 3 minutes. Like, I very, very rarely get times on this level that are less than 3 minutes because of how difficult some of these sections are. That being said, this is actually a really fun and satisfying level to do properly once you know what you're doing. It's just, like I said, very, very difficult, and some of these sections, any single mistake requires you to do multiple sections over again because there was not a checkpoint between them. Okay. Alright, I think I need to just focus a little bit for this section because this is... I think this checkpoint is my least favorite checkpoint of the entire level just because I'm bad at it, and I'm bad at doing it consistently. Alright, I messed up the grab, and the timer ran out, so I did not get the key in time. Alright, that's fine. Alright, that's fine. 5th time's the charm, or however many times I'm at now. Yeah, basically the last 2 levels of this campaign, I am not expecting to get through flawlessly. Because they are so long and so difficult, I basically just take whatever I get and deal with it from there. Alright, this section I have to have all 3 of these switches pressed at the same time, and then the door opens. Alright, this room right here is a little annoying because getting the shade rune in the perfect spot can be a little tricky, but it's not too bad. Also, I made sure not to skip that checkpoint because it's very easy to just go ahead to this next section saying, I'll get it first try, I don't need it. And then you die and have to redo the entire shade section again because you got greedy. But thankfully this section's not that bad. Also, I like this section a lot. This section is tricky, but it is very fair. But I do need to bounce cancel off these springs here in order to get good height. And then this is the final section. It is the longest section of this level, it is the hardest section of this level, and it's the flashiest section of this level, because it's a chase sequence. Where I can go through at my own pace, but I can't take too long, otherwise that fire will catch up. I wasn't kidding when I said this is the longest section of the level either, because we are still not done. There we go. There we go. Okay. Just over 3 minutes is not a bad time for that level. I'm very happy with that. Because, like I said, that is a very easy level to lose a lot of time on. And this is the final level and the final boss. This boss has 4 phases, because they went all out with this. This level was a collaboration between, I think, like 3 or 4 different people, and they all worked on this one level. So while it's uploaded under Gina Skur right there in the corner, he is not the only one who worked on this level. I do not remember the full list of who worked on this level, but needless to say, this is a very complicated level because so many people worked on it. Because remember when I said, you know, custom bosses, custom hazards, custom enemies? Yeah, this level shows off all of that perfectly. Because everything in this level is custom. Alright, that's phase 1. Now it's time for phase 2. Where I got to hit the portal in the middle here with these Luzumi thorns enough times in order to move it on to the next phase. But even though this is phase 2 has 2 phases. Because after 4 hits, the attack patterns change, and I basically have to bounce off of these cannon shots and dodge the fire here in order to get all my hits off. Which isn't too hard if you know what you're doing, but it is very easy to mess up one of the jumps and accidentally jump straight into a fireball. But 3 hits later, and phase 2 is finished. Now it's time for phase 3. Phase 3 is a platforming phase. So we gotta run around, dodge all these obstacles. But the boss wasn't a huge fan of us dodging all those obstacles, so he's gonna chase us down now. Yeah, this is visually, I think this is one of my favorite parts of the entire campaign, because the visual of just the boss chasing you down with the thumps playing in the background from the custom sound effects and everything. I just think this looks really cool, and you got a little chase sequence for it. All right, let me not mess this up this time. There we go. And now it's time for the final phase. So time will be after I get the last hit on this boss when I enter the goal with the package. So I'll call that out when that happens. But this is the most annoying phase because these fireballs are random, and the positioning of the hands that shoot out the fireballs are also kind of random. So you just kind of got to navigate through things and not get hit. But thankfully, it cooperated, so I just got to make sure the fire disappears. It didn't disappear in time. Okay, well, I got to do it again now. That's why this final phase is kind of annoying. Because if things don't work out, you will just die every single time. But that's okay. Now you get to see a little bit more Levelhead, because I got to play the level a little bit longer. All right, let me get this last flap sack. And then if I do this, it'll go straight in. There we go. And time will be now. Time. All right. And fun fact, my official recorded PB for this category is 57 minutes. So I just PB'd by 7 minutes. My unrecorded PB, which I set in the practice room like last night, was a 51-minute time, and I still beat that, so it doesn't even matter that I had an unrecorded one, because this is better anyway. So that is both PB and world record, because not really anybody else runs the community campaign, which is unfortunate. It's actually a lot of fun. It's very difficult, so it takes a lot of practice to actually get good at the community campaign, but it's also a lot of fun, because this game is just a lot of fun. So if anybody is interested in trying out Levelhead or picking it up, trying the community campaign, trying the regular campaign, trying the thousands and thousands of user levels that are out here that aren't the community campaign, this game's available on pretty much every platform. You know, I'm playing it on Xbox. It's available on Switch. It's on PC. It's even on iOS and Android. It goes on sale a couple times a year if you're interested. If anybody does want to pick it up, feel free. You know, if anybody wants to try speedrunning it. You know, there is a community Discord for Levelhead as a whole, and that's where everyone gathers. You can reach out to me. I like talking about this game. If you can believe it, I like this game a little bit, so I don't mind talking about it to people if they wanted to have more information about it. But if not, you know, it's just a fun game, and I'm glad I got to show it off to everybody. So first shout out to Mayoe and every single creator that was featured in this entire campaign. You didn't get to see every single creator because some of the creators' levels, like I mentioned, are not required for the any % run, and their only levels then are bonus levels. But shout out to all of the creators that contributed to this campaign. Shout outs to Mayoe for putting together the whole thing and like organizing everything. Shout out to everybody else that worked on the campaign, whether it was through playtesting, other organizational efforts, or anything that they contributed to this at all, because this was a massive community effort putting together this entire campaign. And of course, thanks to GSA and Pace for letting me show this off, because this is the first time this run has gotten to be shown off at any marathon anywhere. So I'm very glad that I was able to show it off here today and put on a good show for you all. So thanks for having me, and that's it for me here tonight.